The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Jägermeister. Give your beer a real shot this summer. An ice-cold shot of Jägermeister. We're doing the 2018 running back rankings. Full PPR scoring. I've already released my top 200 rankings with Evan Silva. You can find that in the description of the show. As you can find the running back rankings, the overall rankings to each position as they end up coming out. Plus, all the debate show. And I want to give away some DK bucks while we're at it because, hey, we're on the DraftKings YouTube channel, on the DraftKings platform. Might as well get you some bucks. So, in the comment section, after giving the episode a like, all you need to do is leave your DK handle and tell me your two biggest busts at running back this season. You're going to find out mine pretty soon. You're going to find out Garion Thorne's because he's here too.
Hello.
You got busts? You going to try to win some DK bucks?
Although now I'm confused. Have I been drinking Jaeger wrong?
Yeah, apparently you got to put it
in. Does it have to be ice cold?
It has to be ice cold. No, you need to have an ice cold shot. So maybe you have an ice cold beer. Drop some Jaeger in there.
Okay.
Boom.
Fair. One time
get you fired up.
at a college party, we couldn't afford like real shot glasses.
Sad.
So we had the solo cup shot glasses, which I don't know if you know this, it floats on the beer. Doesn't really work for Jaeger bombs all that well. I threw up.
So you need to get the Boilermakers on the go. You got to sink them in it.
Yeah.
And you see all the bubbles come to the top and you're good to go.
Or just put some pennies in there. Copper tastes so good.
So here's the big thing. So you leave your sleeper, your DK, or your two biggest busts, your DK handle, and give the episode a like. You can also rate, review on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all that fun stuff. Spread the wealth of the Pat Mayo Experience. Tell the peoples out there, because they probably want to listen. And the advice is so bad that you probably want to tell your league mates.
Yeah.
And then they'll listen and you'll be like, idiots.
It's
and I'll
true.
win.
It's true. It really, really could work into your advantage.
Yes, it can. So the biggest thing that we have going on here, it's not just myself. It's not just Garion who's on the line. The picks you need to know who is and who is not Andercursed. It is Tim Andercust!
Tim Andercust.
That is not my name.
Oh, yeah. So before we get into the rankings, by the way, we actually need to recap what happened last year in terms of our head-to-head bets, Tim. You made like 7 bets with me, and you lost every single one of them as it pertained to the NFL season.
I'm aware. That means I'm due for quite a few wins this year.
You even bet me 10-1, gave me 10-1 odds that Austin Hooper would not outscore Julius Thomas. And not only did Austin Hooper outscore Julius Thomas became so Andercursed, he has no team.
I don't know what you expect me to say. I mean, those are all statements of fact. It's unfortunate that it went that way. Let's move on. I don't dwell on the past. I'm a future thinker.
I don't know exactly how many points Julius Thomas scored off the top of my head, but how close would it have been if it was just week 1 Austin Hooper versus Julius Thomas?
Julius Thomas had like a nice little run for like 4 weeks.
He got a couple touchdowns.
And then Tim started like tweeting out at Tim Andercust about how, Julius Thomas is going to win this bet. I can't lose. And then all of a sudden, he was like on IR.
Yeah, that's a mistake.
Not my Twitter account.
All right. Either way. So in lieu of making you pay me for said bets, because it was a lot of money and I felt bad. I didn't expect you just to sweep you across the board in every single one of these bets. Can you set up, I got you to give me a picture of yourself instead of paying off the bets. Now, can you please tell the people out there, and this is why you want to watch the video version of the show, what was going on in this picture exactly?
So I didn't realize that on your iPhone camera, there's a button you can push to like flip the camera from front to back. So I was trying for whatever reason. I guess I was swept up in a moment of millennialism to like take a selfie. And so I was holding the phone, if you can imagine, around on the side so that the back of the phone was facing me, but I hadn't turned my flash off either. So when I took the photo of myself, the flash went off and it sort of blinded me. And I don't know why I kept that photo either, but I just had forgotten to delete it. And then it ended up that you wanted it as restitution. And now I regret having given it to you.
Here's my question though, right off the top. You say at the start of this story, you learned there was a button on the phone where you could flip the camera around. And then after learning of this button, you still decided to physically flip your phone around.
No, he didn't know how to use it.
He hadn't yet.
Tim just learned how to use a fax machine last week. So Tim's like treading water in about
I again-
1994.
Stand by this point, which I think him knowing not how to use a fax machine is less in line with the narrative than if he knew how to use a fax machine. I don't really know how to use a fax machine. Why would I?
Well, let's ready for the picture reveal.
Yeah.
All right, let's put up the picture right now. It's not a good picture, Tim. Do you want us to replace your other picture with it?
No, and I was gonna. We'll leave this for another conversation. But how many photos of me do you have, like photoshopped into things?
Well, it's not just. I mean, I have a lot of them saved, but it's usually just the viewers. Like, if you're out there and you take that picture of Tim right now, you can screen grab it off the video version. This is for all the viewers out there. That if you do want to crop that into some sort of hilarious Tim-esque thing, please tweet them at me, and I'll save them and retweet them all back out, and then I'll get them saved and use them at a later date.
Yeah, put it on the face of the kid from Shelbyville when he's drinking a nice cold glass of turnip juice.
Or Thurman Merman from Bad Santa.
Also Thurman Merman.
Please don't do that.
All right, ready to get into the rankings?
Sure.
That's what people are here for.
I got some problems.
Oh, no,
Of
I'm
course
sure
you
you do. So that's probably a good sign that my rankings are all right. Like, I waited like an extra month this time.
Yeah.
And really did some research to go through all this stuff. So.
That's true. Usually it's like mid-March.
Yeah.
Like, I
did
names
put
down.
we did put out rankings in mid-March, but I was on a plane to Mexico and did them in like 30 seconds.
That's
like,
fine.
hey, no one
Yeah.
cares. It's March.
There you go.
Just get some clicks for a show. All right. The rankings coming in at number 1 for PPR scoring in terms of the 2018 running back class. It is Mr. Todd Gurley. And I have these broken down into tiers for people. So tier 1, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, and David Johnson are my top 3. I think that they're on a tier by themselves, followed by Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, and Ezekiel Elliott. That is tier 2. Followed by Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Devonta Freeman, and Jerick McKinnon. Those are the top 12 running backs I have ranked for PPR purposes, and that's what I'm going with. And those are the tiers that they're on. So, Tim, you can be first up. What is your single biggest problem with any of these?
I suppose it's having Ezekiel Elliott at 6 when I'd have him at 1 or 2.
In a PPR.
I don't care. He's the best running back.
I don't care. Catches don't matter to me.
Other than Le'Veon Bell, who's proved year in, year out his worthiness to be the best back or second best back. Everybody else here just has, listen, there are significant question marks with every one of these running backs. I think that's kind of uncommon this year compared to most years. I mean, there's a huge question mark with Gurley. 2 years ago, he was not good.
Stop.
What's
the huge question mark with Gurley?
Was last year aberrational? Because 2 years ago, he wasn't good at all. David Johnson is coming off of a massive injury. How will he look? Will he lose 5% of his skill? And if he does, then he cannot be a top 5 back. Kamara, again, is a sophomore. There's a long and track record of sophomore slumps in football. Barkley is a massive question mark. Who knows with that guy? Who knows with the Giants' offensive line? And then Gordon and Hunt have some real questions with them as well. So I think the only guy about whom there is no question in my mind is Bell. I think Bell has got to be first.
So
I think
just to recap,
hold on.
Your take is that Le'Veon
think
Bell is
that-
the safest player in fantasy football, and that every other player who is worse than Le'Veon Bell, it could go wrong for them.
I think the likelihood of something going wrong is significantly higher with everyone else but Bell. And I actually think Elliott is second. Elliott missed time last year because of his suspension, and he's perfectly fine. Dallas will be leaning heavily upon him this season. I think he's got to be second. So that's my view. I think Elliott is the second best back. I would take him with like the 3rd or 4th pick in the draft.
But you just said he's one of the top 2 players.
Running backs. Well, I mean, I would take Antonio Brown first overall. I think that's pretty uncontestable at this point.
Well, you're
I like
like
how we finally got there.
after every year of me having Antonio Brown at number 1, I don't even have him at number 1 this year. But we'll talk about that. I mean, you can just go back and look at the top 200 show. He's number 4 for me after the top 3 running backs. Because I think that there is a degree of safety with these top 3 where the question marks start to come in at Kamara and Barkley, and especially with Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not as convinced as Tim. Although, I wish it wasn't copyright infringement, because I would like to play the clip of the show from this moment last year when Tim told us the least safe running back in all of fantasy football was Le'Veon Bell because he was going to hold out training camp and was playing for a new contract and wasn't going to try.
So
That was the
I
thing that
was
happened.
wrong. I'm showing professional growth by accepting my wrongness and putting forward a alternative opinion based on new facts and me correcting course.
Now, what
And
did you say? You
and
said.
what do I get for it?
Hold on. You said alternative opinions. You mean
An alternative
fake?
opinion.
You mean fake news?
No, alternative facts are fake news.
You're
Alternative-
fake news.
No, I'm not fake.
You
You're
are
fake.
no. You're fake news.
No.
And you're
I am
also a
showing-
snowflake. Listen how triggered you
I'm
are
not
already.
a snowflake. I am showing growth, and I get nothing but grief for it. If I stick to the old opinions that are wrong, I get grief for that. I can't win.
So last year, it was the first year. After the first 2 years, he was like, David Johnson stinks. David Johnson's no good. Last year, David Johnson is the best player in fantasy. He is the #1 running back on my board. What happened to David Johnson? Ender curse. And now he's all out, so I might have to move David Johnson
I'm not
up.
all out on him. He's a top 5 back.
But I would
He's
say
third.
the way you said if David Johnson comes back and he's lost 5% of what he was, he's not a top 5 back. I would dispute that. If you told me right now that I could have 95% of David Johnson from 2016, I would take that in a heartbeat. And that
Not
is
his number, his skill set.
well, whatever. But I would say that if we're doing this in a tier-based way, I would have David Johnson in that second tier. I do look at that situation coming off a major injury, and I would say there is not a major red flag. I think he would still be my 4th overall player in a PPR. I would have Antonio Brown ahead of him. But I think Gurley and Bell are far and away the clear top 2 selections in the draft for running back.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my reasoning for the top 3 and why I have them in a tier by themselves. Gurley, what's the main? We'll talk about like red flags. What's the red flag attached with each player? For Todd Gurley, it's maybe people have figured out Sean McVay's offense. Maybe there's just natural regression that's going to happen. I mean, he had an outstanding season.
Yeah.
He had 19 total touchdowns. He went for 2,000 yards. The catches, he averaged just below 6 targets per game, which was almost double what he had done in his career rate. But that does seem like how they're going to use him. I'm not too concerned that he's just going to fall off the face of the earth. I think that he's going to be a very solid #1 player overall. I think he's probably the baseline safest, and it's mainly because of the touchdowns over Le'Veon Bell.
Well, yeah, and look, Todd Gurley the last 2 seasons is the easiest thing to point to and go, you know what a running back's value is? He's as good as his team is. And he played for a terrible Rams team
or a
2 years
coach.
ago. Or a coach. I mean, but the coach would obviously lead to the offensive success of a team. He played for a team 2 years ago where I believe he only had 1 carry above 20 yards. But the Rams were awful. He was going against 7-man, 8-man boxes consistently because they had no offensive weapons. And then all of a sudden last season, the offense opens up. They're in the red zone constantly. They score 28.9 points per game. He's going to be good. And I don't think there's all that big a reason to assume that all of a sudden the Rams aren't going to be a good offense. I think the only thing I could possibly point to and say, hey, maybe this is a situation where we could see some regression are the targets. I mean, they brought in Brandon Cooks. They now have...
Yeah, but they lost Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, but Watkins only had 66 targets. Do you feel like Brandon Cooks is going to finish this season with 66 targets?
He might finish with a bit more than that, but I would expect then that Robert Woods or
would
Cooper
lose
Kupp would lose some of their share.
They're
I'm not sweating Eleanor Higbee.
and that's
tight
fair.
end.
And I would say too, the thing here is if last season I believe they were 21st in pass attempts per game, slightly around 32. Like the Patriots led the league with like 40.
Yeah. They could be
But
good
if-
enough that they run more though.
Yeah,
too.
but that's the thing. If they're going down in pass attempts, that means Gurley's probably just getting more carries.
So essentially, what Tim was saying about Ezekiel Elliott, I see Gurley as the advanced fantasy version of Ezekiel Elliott. This has
much
nothing.
more involved in the passing game.
Yeah, like this has nothing to do with the talent of Ezekiel Elliott. If these were talent rankings, then
Well, yeah, no, of course.
maybe Elliott would be higher. But the situation is just so dramatically different.
Yeah.
The role in the offense is so dramatically different that Gurley's going to pay those dividends. And with Bell, my only real concern is that he goes through these stretches where the Steelers just don't give him touches near the goal line. It happens every year. Like, he had 11 touchdowns last season. I think he played 95% of the snaps on Pittsburgh. Like, that just shouldn't happen. Now, if Gurley can keep it close, like, I expect Todd Gurley to score more. I know touchdowns are volatile. It's just the way that they use Gurley with the Rams is going to be, especially near the goal line, it seems to be more consistent than what the Steelers are going to do with Le'Veon Bell. So I would expect the touchdowns to be higher. If I had to bet on that, I would. Now, the catches weren't entirely dissimilar last season in terms of target base. So if Gurley can just keep it close, he's going to be better.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is an obvious reason to think that Le'Veon Bell is due for some positive regression in terms of the touchdowns.
But this has been a thing with him.
Fair, but Todd Haley's not there anymore. Maybe there's a different offensive philosophy, the correct offensive philosophy to just give Le'Veon Bell the ball inside the 5-yard line. I can't say that's certainly going to happen, but again, I do think the separation between these two gentlemen in my mind, even if you want to have David Johnson on his own tier, I just think there is a difference between these two guys and David Johnson, just because...
I'm not worried about this wrist injury at all.
Well, maybe not even the wrist injury, but what do we think about this Arizona offense as a whole?
I think
they're a clear rung below Pittsburgh and the Rams.
Sure, but I think this offense, fantasy-wise, is specifically tailored for David Johnson to be awesome in it. So, okay, let's say Sam Bradford's your starter.
Sharp pass.
Who's Sam Bradford going to throw to?
Larry Fitzgerald,
5 yards from the line of scrimmage, or David Johnson behind the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
true.
now we're in week 4, and Rosen is starting because
Who does exactly the same thing?
And I think, honestly,
we
that's...
don't know what Rosen does in the pros since he's thrown 0 passes.
Well,
in the pros.
if we look at how he played at
he's the rookie
UCLA...
quarterback I'm the least concerned about,
Yeah.
though. I think he's the most NFL ready of the 5.
And what do rookie quarterbacks do? Give it to your Sam, who you think fucking Sam Darnold is, because you're
This
a
isn't
Darnold
actually
is
a
so
thing. This
good.
isn't actually a thing. I think it was Hollywood Mike Clay broke this down about a month ago, where he talked about, everyone talks about the volatility of rookie quarterback target shares. They are near identical over the last 10 seasons in terms of where the balls are thrown.
Do you know who the rookie quarterbacks like to throw to? Their best guys.
Okay,
Arizona
fine.
has 2 best guys.
Yeah, that's
Larry Fitzgerald, not coked out Christian Kirk, and the other one is David Johnson. Like, I would expect David Johnson to just...
Get a lot of false start penalties when you're coked out.
Yeah, you are just too fired up. But with David Johnson, like, he's going to play 90% of the snaps. He's one of those guys. He's going to be probably top 5 in the league in terms of backfield targets. He's going to get every carry from inside the 5-yard line. Maybe the offense isn't as prolific, but I don't think it's bad by any means. It's not the Cowboys' offense.
That's true.
It's going to be terrible.
Under this logic, though, we've outlined this archetype of player, and I guess it's hard because this next tier, like we said, Elliott is basically that guy in terms of he's going to have the volume share of the offense. He's going to have the carries and the touches inside the 5-yard line, especially with Dez gone.
But what's the big thing that drops him back? What's the
The
difference?
receptions.
between
I know, obviously. But I'm just saying, the kind of running back we've outlined is basically just Melvin Gordon. Now, the knock on Melvin Gordon is constantly that Melvin Gordon
is not good.
is terrible.
But no, I have
he checks all
I
these
have
boxes.
a whole Austin Eckler problem with Melvin Gordon.
Really? Because
I do.
even if you go back and
I
look
actually
last
do.
season, he was the only running back to get more than 72% of the team carries inside the 10-yard line. And that was with an emerging Austin Eckler. I don't really see it. Do you think Eckler is good enough where he's just going to steal this job?
No. But I think that if we're going to compare, like, Melvin Gordon is after Elliott on this list.
Yeah.
So I think that objectively, that they're basically play the same role in
I
their
would say-
offense.
I would say,
Elliott
look,
is better.
I'm not arguing to have Gordon ahead of Elliott, but I would say that Gordon is far more involved in the passing game, and people don't really seem to give him the credit for that. He was 7th in running back targets.
But that's where I start to worry, because
You
the
think
stretch
Eckler's
when
gonna
Austin
cut into
Eckler
that?
did come in, I believe it was weeks like 9 through 13 before he ended up breaking his hand. He even put the ball on the ground twice and got benched and was still started playing like 40% of the snaps. And all of a sudden during the passing game, Austin Eckler was the one on the field. So I think that the Chargers, historically with the Chargers, you had your Woodhead role, you had your Sproles role, and that sort of morphed into being Melvin Gordon. He was a catch-all. I think that transitions back more to Austin Eckler. Now, I can't say that for certainty. I don't know that for sure, but the whole point of, like, all these running backs are good. They're good fantasy picks.
Yeah.
So what differentiates them, in my mind, I think that is more of a red flag. Like, with Ezekiel Elliott, he could go up in the passing game. They did sign Tavon Austin.
It's true. We know what the floor is with Ezekiel
exactly.
Elliott.
The floor
He's
is
going to hit his floor.
And the biggest problem I have with Elliott as compared to, like, Kamara, Barkley, is that you can point to red flags with all of them, but I just don't think that offense is going to be pretty good.
I will say,
at all.
in terms of Kamara, I came into this year, and we all know there's baked in regression. Everyone's going to say that. It's
That's fine.
true. But
He doesn't need to be the best player in fantasy.
And that's the thing. You're starting from such a high point. And also, I figured I would go into his game logs and kind of look at the touchdowns he was scoring last season and see a lot of, like, Tyreek Hill sort of touchdowns.
No.
Like, Hill last season, I believe, scored every touchdown outside of 20 yards. Those are the types of touchdowns you start looking at and go, those don't seem like they're sustainable types of touchdowns, just conducive to the situation that teams put themselves in. Aside from the kickoff return and that 72-yard run against the Rams, these were mostly red zone touchdowns.
He had more red zone touches over the final 7 weeks than Mark Ingram did.
Yeah.
And Mark
Yeah,
Ingram's
well,
that awful Mark Ingram, who I did not rank. Actually, I did rank him. He's number 1 in worst place. Although
Cheaters.
and being a cheater and snubbing me at Super Bowl Radio Row, saying he couldn't do it.
Maybe he knows.
Jerk. Anyway, he's in first worst place, along with Doug Martin, who's in second worst place. But Evan Silva ranked Mark Ingram, and he has him at number 39 in my rankings.
That seems aggressive.
Well, and we kind of talked about this a little bit on this show, so I don't want to rehash it so much, but Sean Payton's already coming out and being like, he's mad at Mark. Remember, he like, he's mad at Mark Ingram for skipping OTAs. Mark Ingram's on a PED suspension for 4 games and holding out for a new contract already. So that's not going to be good. So Kamara has 4 games to establish himself as the lead guy. But even pointed out by Silva was someone else over those 4 games, another running back on that team, is going to get a chance to, just to take over that role. And we saw it with Willie Snead last year. Willie Snead gets the PED ban. Everyone's like, oh, Willie Snead. No one's drafting Willie Snead. He comes back, he doesn't fucking play it down.
It's true.
So screw Mark Ingram.
The idea of him being 39th is outrageous, considering some of those backs behind him were so much better than Mark Ingram.
Like?
Well, for example, Isaiah Crowell is amazing. He's going to have a really good...
We're at, how far are we? 20 minutes in?
He's a rookie, but I think Nick Chubb's a darn good player too, and he's gonna have.
You understand that some of these people actually need to play for them to produce fantasy points,
I think
right?
they will. Mark Ingram may not play.
Sure. I didn't rank him. Evan did.
To have Nick Chubb, who is clearly in a running back by committee on a team that will not come within the neighborhood of the Saints' offensive output,
who is also a running back by committee team with a running back coming off a PED suspension. I assume by the time Nick Chubb will end up getting a preponderance of carries.
You think by week 5, Nick Chubb will be the clear lead back in the Cleveland Brown offense?
I think it is a live option.
Okay, well, you better have Nick Chubb on every team then, because he's going to bring back massive amounts of value.
So let's start it up right now. So Tim, set a line on Nick Chubb of what you think he does in terms of fantasy points this season, because I would like to take the potentially under based on how good you think he is.
I'm not super anti-Nick Chubb.
Neither am I. I actually think he's a nice late-round pick in case Hyde gets hurt and he's there.
Sure.
Nick Chubb's situation just reminds me of Derrick Henry's situation for the past 2 years.
Yeah. Hyde is also terribly overrated.
Hyde is bad.
Duke
Hyde
Johnson's
is
still
a
there
bad
too,
running
though.
back.
And don't sleep on Tyrod rushing the ball 12 times a game.
I'm sound asleep on that. I don't know. I think I would have Chubb as a top 30 running back in fantasy points by year's end.
How many touchdowns?
I don't know what that calculates out to. I'd say 6 touchdowns.
6 touchdowns. How many yards?
It's hard to gauge. Rushing or
well, you're talking about how he's so fucking awesome. Give me a line.
I'm just thinking in terms of ranks. I don't know.
The only parameters to be a top 30 running back are: do you think Nick Chubb will play 16 games this year? Because if the answer to that question is yes, guess what? He's gonna be a top 30 running back. Frank freaking Gore was RB20 last season in a standard league.
Yeah, Frank Gore's a good back.
No, he's not. He was. If you had started Frank Gore, like we tell you every single year, Tim, if he was a starter on your team in a 12-team league, you didn't make the playoffs.
I worked this out last night, actually, because we had to talk about the Dolphins, sadly.
Sad.
He had 6 weeks in a standard league where he actually scored more than double-digit points, and the highest of those 6 was 14, and it took 36 carries for him to get to that. The other games were like 10.1, 11.3. He is bad. He's just played 16 games 6 straight years.
Yeah, he is the ultimate example that when you look back, Latavius Murray in Oakland was a lot like this too. That they never got hurt. They had so many carries. You're like, oh, I like that sort of consistency.
At least
you'd be better off rolling the dice on the waiver wire with some hot new thing every week.
Murray had a week-to-week ceiling where you could actually factor in the consistency and go, oh, this consistency means something. I need a flex every week. That's not the case with Frank Gore ever.
Let's go back to Barkley to Kamara for a second. We really got off base. We got down the rabbit hole there. He had 100 targets last year. And it's not like he was just a big part of this offense for like the first 4 weeks of the season.
Missed a game too.
He could eclipse that number again. Like he doesn't need to see his carries go exponentially up. He had 120 attempts last season. Let's say you just push that to 165, 170, and he continues to get the goal line work. And even if he works in a split with whoever
he's a much better version of Christian McCaffery on a much better team in a much better situation. You have McCaffrey as your RB14 because, again, McCaffrey is probably going to get over 100 targets this
that's
season.
all floor-based.
And again, but that's the thing. You look at this and you go, okay, if McCaffrey justifiably is a top 15 running back in a PPR, yeah, Kamara probably doesn't need 100 carries to be a top 10 guy. I do look at him versus Barkley.
Well, Barkley's the big question mark here, because if you wanted to take Barkley first, I'd tell you to give your head a shake, pal.
I think I'd take Barkley over Kamara, though.
But
No, I would definitely take. I mean, I'm not making this case, but Kamara, if you were in like a 16-team league, let's say, you took Kamara 1, I wouldn't be upset with you. I'd understand it.
I think that there's a case that you can make for a lot of these guys that they'll finish as the number 1 scoring back.
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't think that Zeke in a PPR league can finish as the number 1 back.
He's just not involved enough in the passing.
But with Kamara and Saquon Barkley, I think that they could. I just don't think that they will.
Yes.
Because I do worry about Jonathan Stewart stealing touchdowns from him. Why is Jonathan Stewart on this team?
I don't know.
Why is he on the? You tell me. Why is he on the team?
I don't like it. Believe me, I don't like it.
I will not
but I
hear
would
bad
say,
things said about Jonathan Stewart.
of their free agent acquisitions, the most important is Nate Solder, who was part of the best run blocking offensive line last season. The Patriots averaged over 5 adjusted line yards per carry. He, by Pro Football Focus, was their best run blocking offensive lineman. I think it's very big to bring him in. And who knows? Maybe the wreck that is Eric Flowers can actually play right tackle. It's maybe a pipe dream. I don't know. But at least they went out and addressed these areas of concern.
They would be better off having the guy from, what is it, Flowers from Aldernon? Is that what it's called?
I have no idea what you're talking
I think so.
Yeah. They want the main guy from that book
about. Okay.
playing tackle for them instead of
Fair
Eric
enough.
Flowers.
I just
You
think...
can Google what it's about after.
I mean, it's probably like cancer.
No?
No?
Please.
Just seems sad.
It's not good.
Okay. Well, fair. But yeah, I do think... How does he not get 250 to 300 touches this season?
Because he isn't good.
Who, Barkley?
That's how he doesn't get there. If he just turns out to be a bust.
Look, I am fully on board with not
is it an
taking running
option?
backs in the draft, like the real draft, because it's a stupid investment. But once a team has taken said running back, I can at least acknowledge that the dude's good.
But we don't know if he's good. We've seen a lot of top tier running backs come into the pros and just not perform. It is just it's wish casting to say, oh, he's definitely going to have 200 plus carries. He's going to be great. Maybe he will be.
Look,
Totally
Leonard
possible.
Fournette was not
Maybe
exactly the most
he's a bust.
efficient running back in the world
Top
last
10
season.
back.
He was still a top 10 back.
Ezekiel
Like,
Elliott the year before.
It's I don't love the whole like, oh, they paid this guy in free agency. We have to respect that a little bit because it means clearly the team has an idea in mind for this person. But you look at sort of, I mean, your Jets the last couple of seasons, Tim, where we would sit here and go, Bilal Powell is a better running back than Matt Forte. Why aren't they giving Bilal Powell all the carries? And it's, well, Matt Forte is making a whole lot of money. So sometimes that works out. Sometimes the actual economics of this makes sense. Why would the Giants take this guy, especially knowing that basically a running back shelf life is what, 5 years?
Yeah.
You run the tread off these tires for 5 years.
And it's his and the thing that differentiates him from
Great receiver.
from Ezekiel Elliott is his role in this receiving
Good pass
game.
blocker too.
He's gonna be on the field as long as he can get these goal line touches and potentially score them touchdowns. He's probably gonna have 50 plus catches. He's probably gonna score double-digit touchdowns, like you said. He could be in the neighborhood of 300 touches overall.
I think I'm going to take the under on all of those things. If I had to bet, I think I'd take the under on all of them.
It's because Jonathan Stewart's there, isn't it?
Well, you know what? That's not irrelevant whatsoever. And Eli Manning is terrible. And I don't think he's going to finish the season. Like, I don't think he's going to finish the season. And so God knows who's in a quarterback. And if you got a bad QB, then you just stack the box and make whomever is backing up Eli Manning beat you. And I think you'll probably win. Like, I don't know. I have a very bad feeling, and I did from the start about Saquon Barkley even before the draft. It's like, I don't know about this kid. My spidey senses have bust written all over him. And I can't explain it, but I just have a gut feeling that he's not going to be
the number
great.
one back.
Yeah, so he's definitely going to finish as the number one running back in fantasy, is what you're
So
saying.
I will be passing on him in all of my leagues.
I don't want to defend Eli Manning because you're right. By all statistical means, he was a terrible quarterback last season. But I think if last season proved anything, it's that if you surround even the most mundane quarterback with just weapons, and right now, though I guess there are some injury question marks with like the health of Odell Beckham Jr.,
No,
but
there's not.
not really.
There's cocaine problems.
Well, sure. But hey, that's fine.
Hey, Michael Irvin was smoking crack.
Some great Giants have had cocaine problems. Let's just put it that way. Evan Ingram looks fantastic. Like, they have dynamic offensive weapons. Like, Case Keenum did a whole lot with dynamic offensive weapons in Minnesota. I think Eli...
He was on the case.
He was
On the case.
Sure, he was never off the case. That's where people want to miss. They thought he was off the case.
So listen, I'm big on Barkley. I have him at number 5, but I think that Kamara, Barkley, and Elliott are part of that tier. Let's move on here. Gordon, Hunt, Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Devonta Freeman, and Jerick McKinnon are next up on this list. You could talk me into like people are higher on Hunt than I am. I just think that
It's not really about him though.
No, it's about there's so many
There's just
options
a lot of good
there,
running
and their
backs.
defense is brutal. And Charkandrick West Charkandrick West played a role into curbing Kareem Hunt's upside last season.
I'm not really worried about him losing his job.
I'm not
per
worried
se.
about him losing his job either. Spencer Ware is back though.
Yes. But
I think Hunt's the most talented.
It's going to be a dynamic offense. I think they're going to score points. They're going to be in a lot of games that are track meets because, like you said, their defense is terrible. But yeah, it's just not about him. It's just saying, look.
It's same as Tyreek Hill. I don't love Tyreek Hill, and as much as I don't really love Sammy Watkins' presence on that team,
means something.
Along with Kelsey, who is probably going to be pretty good. Like,
sort of
not everyone can be awesome.
Very underutilized in the red zone, though. Which doesn't make a
Maybe
lot of
not
sense
no mo.
because you stare at it and go, okay, Tyreek Hill's not getting the targets in the red zone. Travis Kelsey's not getting the targets in the red zone. I guess that would lead you to believe
they
that
bring in
there's...
Don Terry Poe and throw to him.
I don't even know.
So,
I don't know.
Anyway, so Hunt's there. Dalvin Cook is just kind of
Yeah, I like Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook's good.
He was good before he got hurt. I expect him to be good again.
Fournette, I can see falling off a cliff. He is my biggest fear of these guys. I really want to rank Devonta Freeman over him. But Tevin Coleman's still a thing there. I actually really like Devonta Freeman. I think he's a nice value this year. And Jerick, I just don't know if he can hold up to it. You have to rank him so highly because of the opportunity that he has. But if Matt Breida was playing 50% of the snaps or Kyle Jerick ended up with like 70 catches out of the backfield, that's not going to stun me. It's not going to scare me away from Jerick to draft him. But in terms of rankings, like there's only so much hype that you can have.
Yeah, I think in a PPR league, a full-point PPR, Jerick versus Fournette is a very interesting debate. I think that for me though, and I'm kind of surprised that maybe you didn't go this far because I know your philosophy tends to be don't try to finish second, try to finish first.
But with Fournette, I know he's never, unless he's hurt.
It's an exceedingly high floor. Look, I get it.
Coming off
it's
the
a
field.
super, super high floor. But I look at McKinnon, and especially the way that Carlos Hyde was utilized last season, and as Tim said, Carlos Hyde, not very good.
And ended up with all these catches somehow.
That's the thing. He had a bunch of catches.
But all those came with like CJ Beathard and Brian Hoyer at quarterback. As soon as Garoppolo took over, he didn't really throw. He threw down the field. He didn't throw to the running backs.
It's fair, but the one thing I would say is even if he doesn't quite get the volume share that Hyde had, and I think maybe he could just because he's a better route runner than Hyde, of the 29 running backs to play at least 50% of their snaps, team snaps last season, had the second lowest yards per target of those 29 running backs. The only guy who was worse was Jordan Howard because Jordan Howard can't catch. So I think if you're giving that amount of volume to someone who can actually take advantage of it.
But I'm just worried that as soon as Garoppolo took over, there was no more throwing to running backs. Like that was a real thing.
It was such a small sample, though.
It is, but that's...
And the running backs were all worse than Jerick McKinnon. So I actually don't read anything from that.
But it seemed like the offense changed, and he was thrown to Kyle Jers.
But again, if you had the option right now of saying, okay, if we can take 15% of the volume share the running backs had last season and put that to the side, and it's not going to happen in 2018, but the offense is just going to be a lot better.
I'm just not convinced that
I'd
he's going to be on the field for 80% of the snaps. I'm not.
He, you know what? He probably can't handle that. I think in the past, a small sample size again, but when he was given the chance to be the premier back with the Vikings, he really couldn't hold up to it. Like, he needed Latavius last season.
Now, let's turn to Tim. So, Tim, how good do you think that Jerick is going to be?
I think he's going to be very good. Very, very good. I think of this group, you have him last. I would have him second after Hunt, I think. Not I think, I know.
So you think that he's going to score more points than Saquon Barkley, don't you?
Oh, I think almost certainly.
So
yes.
Is that a bet we can make then? More fantasy points, PPR-wise?
Yeah, I'm open to that.
All right, so Barkley versus Jerick.
You don't want odds on that, Tim.
No, that's straight
Why would
up.
I want
He just
odds?
said he's
I've
going to
got
be better.
Okay, that's cool.
I've got the better player. I don't need odds here.
Here's what I would say, just going through a draft in my mind right now. And I guess ADP is factored into this a little bit because McKinnon is going 4 to 5 to 6 spots behind Leonard Fournette right now. Actually, Fournette is sometimes like a borderline first-round pick.
I wouldn't take him there.
That's the thing. If I'm leaving the second round or entering the second round, and I've already got a running back under my belt, even if I don't, let's say I have a wide receiver, I'm not leaving round 2, regardless of where I'm picking with Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette will not be on my teams this season.
So he's your bust.
He's my bust. I would be okay having Jerick McKinnon as a second round pick. So even if this isn't exactly conducive to the rankings because, again, there's a full round of volume or of just ADP standing between these two guys. But I will have shares of McKinnon. I won't have shares of Fournette. So if that translates to me saying McKinnon's better, sure. But it is a first round pick versus a second round pick. But I know right now I will not have Leonard Fournette on my teams.
Okay. What about Devonta Freeman? That Atlanta offense should be...
They should be better.
They should score more touchdowns.
They were 2 full touchdowns worse last season. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm the resident booster of Devonta Freeman on this show, and I remain with that. I think he's going to be a marvelous top 10 PPR back.
He's probably of this 12, because as you talked about, there is so much conversation to be had about these guys, maybe aside from Le'Veon Bell. He's the other one in this group that you're kind of just desensitized to.
Yeah.
Devonta Freeman's just good. So it's fine. Yeah. It's not a sexy pick. You don't feel like you're going to be a world beater with him on your team, but he'll be on championship teams this year.
Mm-hmm. And of course, if you go to DKPlaybook.com and find these rankings and follow along, they're going to change. There's going to be training camp news. Someone's going to get hurt. If Tevin Coleman got blowed his Achilles for the season,
let's say
Devonta Freeman would just go up. He would probably.
I think he's behind Hunt at that point, right?
I think I would just put him one spot ahead of Gordon. He'd be the top of this tier instead of the bottom of this tier.
Okay. I would still have Melvin Gordon ahead of him, but I think I would have him basically.
Well, he'd be the same guy, except there'd be no one stealing the work from Devonta Freeman.
Devonta Freeman.
I think they would, but you don't think they would have a running back to just step in there and fill that role?
Taron Ward?
I mean, we've seen it before. It's not like both these guys have been healthy necessarily.
Remember Antone Smith?
I do remember Antone Smith.
Yes.
He was good on his 12 carries.
I could only find a Tampa Bay Buccaneer version of his headshot. That's how I remember most of these guys at this point.
Yeah. So, Tim, what were you saying about Freeman?
Freeman is essentially this generation's Brian Westbrook.
I think that's under.
Let's pump the brakes on that just a little. Brian Westbrook was the best player in fantasy, year after
amongst
year after
the best
year.
player in fantasy every year, and chronically underrated in fantasy year in year out.
No, just because you didn't take him didn't mean he was underrated.
He wasn't the best because he was part of the LT generation.
LT was
but
there.
in the leagues
Westbrook
where you're no one's
Priest
taking
Holmes
LT.
was there.
Yeah.
No, but Sean Alexander was there in years 2, and he was definitely going ahead of Westbrook. Westbrook was, and Marshall Faulk in his early part of his career. Again, I think Westbrook was chronically underrated, and I think Freeman is very similar. And they're similar types of backs.
I don't even know about that. I think that Freeman's actually a better runner.
I don't think you can say he's underrated, though, because, again, his situation dictates that he can't be a top 10 running back.
Properly rated Devonta Freeman?
Yeah. He's the least interesting conversation to have on this show.
Yeah,
he's fine.
When we talk about this with wide receivers, AJ Green is falling into the situation this year, too. Everyone has now owned AJ Green.
Yeah.
He's been around long enough. Everyone has owned him, and everyone's like, oh, man,
they're over it.
AJ Green got 3 points this week? I hate AJ Green. They forget about, the 26-point week, but he's really, in terms of scoring.
Again, I would say that what I could say about AJ Green versus Freeman is I can't really find a knock on Freeman aside from the running back by committee thing, but so many running backs have that tag on them.
Yeah,
that
we're now into that area.
Where there are some things to be said about just the overall offensive potential of a bad Cincinnati Bengals team. So that could drag AJ Green down. I don't think that's happening with Devonta Freeman.
Next tier, number 13, 14, 15, and 16 is Kerryon Drake.
That seems high.
Christian McCaffrey, LaShawn McCoy, and Alex Collins. The Kerryon Drake ranking is one that's probably going to fluctuate throughout the course of the preseason because right now I'm actually not sweating Frank Gore.
I'm not sweating Frank
Gore.
So if I'm not, I would sweat Kalen Ballage.
I'm not sweating either of them. We saw Drake was good at the end of last season.
And they bring in Josh Sitton for the first time in 5 years. They have an actual NFL, not even all-pro caliber guard, which he could be. He's 32, who knows? But they have an actual starting guard. Good for them.
But with Drake,
a lot of turnover on that offensive line.
If Drake can play, I don't even care about that. If that's going to be the case, he's going to have 9 catches a game.
Fair.
If he's just their full-time back, he's going to. If you told me right now that Kerryon Drake would be the starter week 1 and that he would play 70% of the week 1 snaps and that would be his role moving forward, he'd be ahead of Leonard Fournette.
I just feel like, and I know
he wouldn't be ahead of Barkley.
I know there's a cloud over LaShawn McCoy right now, but
well, we don't know what that cloud is.
Yeah, we don't really know. But I look at McCoy and it's just I understand this is a stock market. I understand you want to get off the old running back before it's too late to get off him. but is there really that big a difference between the potency of the Dolphins offense and the Bills offense in 2018?
There could be. The Bills could be
They
exceptionally
could be
bad.
the worst team in the league. They could. I don't know if the Dolphins are going to be that much better. And I know this is generally viewed upon as a tiebreaker sort of thing. And it's funny that the Dolphins get this schedule because we're always looking for like who has the worst fantasy playoff schedule. And it's funny that the Dolphins get it, so it really only affects Kerryon Drake, the only person who you would have on a team that's going to make the fantasy playoffs this year. But they get in consecutive weeks, week 15, week 16. So your conference final and your final, they get the Minnesota Vikings and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I understand that I have those defenses projected to be really good, but we don't know.
We don't. But like I said, it's a tie-breaking sort of factor on draft day.
And his involvement in this offense, I think, could mitigate bad matchups with the way that he be used out of the backfield. Like Jarvis Landry's not there no more. It's Albert Wilson, Danny Amendola.
I was gonna say, do you
so
feel like
they're going to be there for what, like 3 games each?
Yeah. Is there a situation where he lines up in the slot ever? That we see both these guys in the field?
I don't know. I need to hear more reports about Frank Gore to see if he's like why sign Frank Gore?
He's culture. I have never been more sure about anything in my life.
If he's on the bench and Kerryon Drake is the starter, Kerryon Drake's just good. I think he's talented. I think the role would make a lot of sense. I like Kerryon Drake. And with Shady has a similar role. He's just older and a worse offense.
I would have Shady ahead of him.
And he might be suspended for the rest of his life. Who knows?
That is a thing.
As of this taping,
we will know more about that situation,
yeah,
I think.
That's why you check the updated
reasonably
ranks.
is drafting. Yeah.
So, Tim, do you have problems with this tier? Because it feels like you don't like any of them.
I don't like any of these backs. I mean, Drake, I guess, of all of them, is the most interesting. But I actually
hate the Drake.
I think the Dolphins have the worst offense in football. So, I mean, I think if I had to, like...
Great news for your Miami Dolphins,
again, as I've pointed out time and time again, the Dolphins have... There's no effect of the curse on the Dolphins. The Dolphins are just bad.
Tim picks them every year to be good. And
they're always bad.
Yeah, so now he's not picking
But
them.
it's not about that, though. They're just bad. They're just simply bad.
To correct this, I said they would be good 2 years ago. They made the playoffs the year I said they'd be good.
You said that they would beat New England twice and win the division.
Winning the 6th seed in the AFC is not exactly an accomplishment. I'm just going to put that out there. There's about
I
4
would
good
pick
teams in
the
the
6th
AFC,
seed
and then
every
there's... well, fair. But...
McCaffery, we just know what the floor is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to be
player,
involved.
Whatever.
Like, I love C.J. Anderson. I think C.J. Anderson might be a little low.
I don't at all. What's he do besides rushing yards? That's it.
Nothing.
Cam's going to steal his touchdowns.
See, but that really wasn't happening that much last season.
Well, how many touchdowns did Jonathan Stewart score?
4?
Sweet.
Yeah. But I think C.J. Anderson's a much younger and better version of Jonathan Stewart.
I just don't think he's all that great. And I just think that offense runs through Cam, and if anything was to happen to... Put it this way, if something was happening to Christian McCaffrey, I don't think that there'd be a substantial increase in C.J. Anderson's work. Now, if something happened to C.J. Anderson, I think that there would be a dramatic increase in the ground game. Just like,
I feel like they figured it out last season.
Did they?
Maybe it's early to say, like, definitively this guy can't run between the tackles, but guess what? This guy can't run between the tackles.
I'm more interested in your next level because I have a couple of questions there and I just need answers.
No, well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my main man, a guy I'm going to be owning a lot of this season, Alex Collins, who's just straight up good. I don't think that Kenneth Dixon or Buck, who likes to fuck Allen, is going to take anything away from him. There's no Danny Woodhead. And hey, maybe they play Lamar Jackson. Now we're talking.
But as we talked about, I mean, Alex Collins wasn't hyper involved in the passing game last season.
No, he wasn't.
But if you have any quarterback who is a check down machine,
It's
it
Joel
is
Flacco.
Joe
So
Flacco.
if he just plays the snaps, he's going to get catches.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with him.
Their entire receiving core is flipped too.
They're an offense that you know is going to run the ball. The defense is good. So
How many tight ends do they have?
I don't know,
How many
80?
tight ends are going to make their 53-man roster?
like
Like
40?
7?
40, maybe?
Yeah.
That's going to just all tight ends. But their offensive line isn't going to be quite as banged up. At least at the moment, it isn't as it was last year. And Alex Collins was just good anyway. He's a good running back. I think Seattle feels kind of stupid for letting him go.
Yeah.
And now they had to spend a first-round pick on a running back. Bloop. Bloop. Yeah, so I like Alex Collins a lot.
Yeah.
I think that he's a high-volume guy that you can get down here. Marshawn Lynch is the other one that I really like, who kind of falls into that same category that I could just see him just getting touches.
I will say that I think a healthy Derek Carr is a big part of Marshawn Lynch's value this season, just in the sense that Oakland will move the ball far better.
Will they?
I think they will.
I couldn't want anything less to do with a running back, perhaps, than Marshawn Lynch.
I also don't want Marshawn Lynch. That was the one positive I could come up with. Is I think this offense will be better.
Oh, so you're off the Raiders now?
Oh yeah, that's a trash team.
There you go.
So now they're going to come right back around. So, okay, the next level, number 17 and down, Gentleman, Joe, Mixon, Jordan Howard, Marshawn Lynch, Rex Burkhead, Lemar Thriller, and Rashad Penny are all right on that tier for me. So, Tim, you had problems with this tier that you said. So, what are your big problems?
I don't understand why Burkhead is where he is. Why is he the top-rated Patriot back? He's almost certain to be the third Patriot in fantasy points by year's end.
Oh, would you like to wager on that?
Wait, do you mean running back or skill position player?
Running back, obviously.
So you think that James White and Sony Michel both outscore him?
Yeah, at least Sony Michel, and I think James White.
You just said both.
Yeah.
I know I said both. I think Sony Michel with a bullet does, and I think it's close enough. I mean, Burkhead, again, doesn't play a lot, and when he does, he's not that good anyway. I think James White, who they trust more, is probably going to finish with more points too. He's certainly far more of a red zone threat than Burkhead is.
Who?
You know who won't be spending a fifth-round pick on Sony Michel?
Does nothing but score touchdowns.
This guy.
Yeah. Burkhead right now, I mean, James White is the cheapest of all these guys, and where I have Burkhead ranked at number 21 in running backs, I think per average ADP he's going like the 80s or something like that. He's like a 7th-round pick, 6th-round pick, something like that. I just think that, look at what's happened.
No value there.
You mean there's no value? You're fucking
To take
moron.
him in the 6th or 7th round, there's just no value. That's you might as well set that pick on fire.
All right.
Throw it in the
So Rex Burkhead, I will take versus Sony Michel. What sort of odds would you like to give me since it's impossible to happen?
I'll give you 3-2.
Give me 2-1.
All right, fine.
2-1. So Rex Burkhead versus Sony Michel. So that's a bet for us. More fantasy points and PPR
just
scoring.
in a
2-1.
general sense.
Also, what would you like to make that bet straight up versus James White too? I'll take Rex Burkhead.
No, I'm not as confident.
Oh, but you were about 30 seconds ago.
I do think he will be better, but by just a smidgen, and not enough to bet on.
Well, we'll do it even money.
No, I don't want to. I'm good enough with. I mean, assume if I win the Michelle one, I'll probably win the Burkhead, or would probably win both. So that's enough.
He doesn't want to get greedy by taking all of my money on these bets. So here's what I
just don't want to have multiple bets on Patriots running backs. Just one seems like it's enough.
But that hesitation is what you should be using to look at the fantasy ranks. Why would you want to invest in the guy 2.5 rounds higher than the known commodity we have in the 7th round, knowing what we know the last decade? Very good commodity.
I have Sony Michel at 35 in my PPR rankings.
Yeah, they are close.
No, they aren't. I have one at 21. I have one at 35.
Well, okay. They're not like miles apart. At least not in my opinion.
They've basically
but your
flip-flopped in
opinion,
terms of general consensus, in terms of ADP.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care about that.
I just think
you're a man of the people. ADP is what you do.
No, the people at this point aren't even plugged in yet. They're just starting to plug in.
Sony Michel is going like 2.5 rounds higher than Rex Burkhead is.
He's going in the 5th round.
He should.
No, he shouldn't.
Now, I mean, because he's a better running back. Rex Burkhead isn't very good.
Saquon Barkley sucks. Sony Michel, very good. I got this now. I got this all down. I know how this is working.
I'm not so sure that I mean, listen, Michel and Chubb, both running backs out of Georgia. I think those backs are both better. Yeah.
It's because Georgia played Notre Dame last season and Penn State didn't.
It
there
has
you go.
Nothing to do with that. I don't think that way.
Come on now, Tim.
I would be honest. That didn't even occur to me. I mean, Garion was thinking that, not me.
So, in terms of Rex Burkhead, he has multiple ways that he can produce fantasy points. He was their primary. He was their primary red zone player out of the backfield last year when he was healthy, which is kind of crazy.
Slot wide receiver.
He was a slot wide receiver,
which could be coming to play the first 4 games of the season.
Who are they missing for 4 weeks?
3. I think it's 3 now. Actually.
Oh, it's down to 3.
Yeah.
So really, all they have in the receiving game right now is Gronk. They have Jordan Matthews, and Edelman will eventually come back. That's fantastic. Rex Burkhead's going to be playing receiver. He's going to be lining up in the backfield. He gets goal line carries. And I'm not convinced that Sony Michel's just going to be the starter on this team. They're going to go with the better player. They re-signed Rex Burkhead in the offseason. They like him. They can move him around the field, and he's up to date on the offense. That's pretty good when you're dealing with Tom Brady, who's constantly changing the plays. He's someone that Tom Brady trusts. I forgot about Chris Hogan, who I also really like. But either way,
I was going to say, there's other receivers on this team.
Like who? Are you back on the Cordero Patterson bandwagon?
No, but I'm like, listen, Kenny Britt's not the worst receiver in the world.
Oh my God. Rex Burkhead sucks. Kenny Britt is good. This is your take.
Philip Dorsett, they have a belief in him. I don't know that I have the same belief in him, but they like Philip Dorsett. And it's like Edelman's not going to factor into the season much at all. So they need to find a receiver who's, going to be able to carry the load without Cooks. They don't
Why
give away
wouldn't
Cooks
Why wouldn't Edelman factor in?
because he missed all last year and with a bad injury, and now he's on a suspension. He wasn't going to matter this year anyway, I don't think. He's just not that good anymore. He's too old and injured. But he's certainly not going to factor in now with a suspension. So the Patriots don't get rid of their best receiver by a mile, wide receiver in terms of Cooks, without some sort of plan. It's somebody on that roster can carry the load, can be the guy who take the top off the defense and give Brady a chance to open up the offense. And I think the Patriots have some options there. And so that's why, no,
Look,
Edelman, certainly.
I wouldn't have him at 21, but I think the spirit of this assessment, I'm behind. Like, I would say I'd have Lamar Miller ranked higher than Rex Burkhead, but
I
I'm
just
not.
don't think Lamar Miller's any good.
That's the thing. I'm not leaving a draft with Lamar Miller in the 5th round. I'm probably leaving a draft with Rex Burkhead in the 7th. But if you ask me who's going to score more fantasy points, I do think Miller's going to score more fantasy points.
I think it's going to be Burkhead.
I don't know. I
Well,
just think
obviously, you have him ranked higher.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
Like,
Jordan Howard's weird.
Jordan
I get it.
Jordan Howard,
he can't. It's PPR's his kryptonite. I understand that.
PPR's his kryptonite, and as Evan pointed out, like as we were going through this, like best ball wise, Jordan Howard's not the end of the world because he's gonna have some really good games. But he's like, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's going to be fucking terrible and ruin your week.
No, it's true.
Like I just don't want him, and I don't think that Joe Mixon's all that good. I think that Gio Bernard is sneakily back in play coming off the injury. Like, what did you see from Joe Mixon last season that you thought was any good?
There were a couple flashes, but again, I don't necessarily hold that against him. I hold that against just what was an atrocious offense for Cincinnati in general. I don't think that's going to change, though. I don't. Their offensive line could be the worst in all of football.
I think Mixon and Howard are the two most overdrafted quarterbacks so far this year. They're going like in the 20s overall. Like that's too high.
There's
Howard
at
might
least
not even have his job. After 6 or 7 weeks.
Oh, you're back on the Tariq Cohen bandwagon?
I was never off. That kid has skill.
he's not big enough to be an every down running back. They tried, it didn't work.
That doesn't matter. I like him more.
I don't think he's going to be an every down back, but I think he can take a big
And also,
bite.
the problem Cohen's going to have this season is there's actual physical wide receivers on the Bears this year.
Yeah.
He's not their number one target
Yeah, so the
anymore.
Hebrew Hammer might struggle just a little bit.
I don't know. I would have Howard above Mixon.
I can see the potential for Mixon. His ceiling, I think, is higher than Jordan Howard's.
I would agree.
Because there's going to be just no receiving game work from Jordan Howard.
But I think with an RB2, as strange as it sounds, I'm more about floor with an RB2 than ceiling.
Jordan Howard's year might resemble a slightly better Frank Gore year. That's what I see. Like when I look at it, that's what it looks like. Like, do we think the Bears' offense is going to be all that good? No.
I think their defense could be good, and that's an important part.
Like he's going to have to score like 16 touchdowns in order to be relevant.
I don't think it's going to be that much. He's going to have 1,200 yards. He needs what, 8-9 touchdowns? I don't think that's inconceivable.
Even so, that's not all that great. That's running back 2 numbers, and I have him as a running back.
But that's what I'm
I
saying.
have him at number 18.
I understand that. But I'm looking at him, and I look at, let's say, Alex Collins. Like, really, what's the difference there?
I think that.
Do you think Collins is going to be significantly more involved in the passing game?
I don't know if he is or if he isn't, but at least the path for him being more involved is in play. Same as with Mixon. With Howard, it's just not there. It's never going to materialize. We know it's not. He is the single worst pass catcher out of the backfield in all of football. And they have a guy, as Tim stated, on the team who's exceptionally good at it. Like they have very defined roles. At least with Baltimore and in Cincinnati, they could just turn to both those guys just for dump-offs. And all of a sudden you're averaging like 4.5 targets a game instead of like 2 targets a game. That is the difference.
No, it's big. It is. I think there is a value in me sitting here right now and saying I can definitively say that Jordan Howard will finish the season as an RB2.
I kind of wish I ranked Rex Burkhead ahead and Marshawn Lynch. Because I see Marshawn Lynch in very much the same situation.
I don't know how you could get more excited about Marshawn Lynch than Jordan
Howard.
Because
Marshawn Lynch was good last year.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was. They just didn't use him.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was. Go look at elusive rating. Go look at just watch the film and watch his explosion. He was still pushing people over. You know what didn't happen? They gave him like 9 carries a game.
I don't think he can handle anymore. He's an old man.
He most definitely
He's an old man who's
running
85% Skittles.
He's running on Skittles me Timbas. He's going to get all fired up, run through. And what's John Gruden going to do? He's going to be like, you know how football's won? By giving the ball to your running back 30 times. So as long as that guy isn't Doug Martin, who might be the worst running back in the league still, Marshawn Lynch is going to be pretty damn good.
I don't
And
think
right
so.
now, he's going in like the 9th round.
I don't want any part of him.
No part whatsoever.
Look, I'm
I
not.
like him.
I'm not going to stare you in the face and say, as a 9th round starting running back, he doesn't have some sort of value. But
I think he's a more viable running back too, especially for the price. Like if you were just to wait, like you can get him as your 3rd or 4th running back. He's a guy that you could play basically every week. And if this offense is better, because the reverse curse by Tim, he's going to have ample opportunity to score in the red zone. They might cut Rocket. They might cut my main man, Rocket Richard.
Maybe.
So now we're dealing with Doug Martin, who sucked. What are you saying?
I wouldn't even play him in my flex, and I believe you must play an RB in flex. I still wouldn't play him. That's how strong I feel.
But I think I think you look at those two situations, and like you said, the ADP does change a lot. You're getting him 5 rounds after you get Jordan Howard. That's a decent amount of value. But if your worry about Jordan Howard is he's going to have weeks where he scores 3 points in a PPR,
I don't think that's
there's going to be a ton of weeks where Marshawn Lynch does that.
I don't think so.
He's not going to be involved in the passing game.
Who is?
I don't know, but it's not going to be Marshawn Lynch.
Why not?
He wasn't.
How many catches do you think he had last season?
12.
20.
He had 20, correct.
There you go.
Well,
Not many.
So, and they were awful last year, and they were like managing his usage last year.
Why would that change him being a year older?
Because John Gruden is now their coach. He wants to turn to a
we're
grinder.
We're going fully into just John Gruden's a moron, and that's what we're banking this season on.
Yes.
I don't know. That's.
Do you want to start making some bets here? You want to give me Jordan Howard versus Marshawn Lynch?
Yeah.
Do it.
Yes. Straight up.
Yeah, what are the odds that you want to give me here? I'm taking a guy that's going 50 picks later, or potentially 70
we just doing
picks
straight
later.
up fantasy points in a PPR?
Yeah, or you can give me a spread then, if you would like, and then we'll make that the straight up bet. Tim, do you want a part of this too?
No, but I am strongly behind Garion on this.
I'm
That's
trying
bad
to think what's
news for you.
fair. 50 fantasy points?
50 fantasy points in a PPR?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that bet.
Okay, cool.
So,
That's pretty
Lynch
much.
plus 50. It's
I don't like the Tim's on my side.
versus Jordan Howard.
What could go wrong?
Like, lose money.
What could go wrong? Exactly.
Technically speaking, I could lose
Exactly.
money.
You're going to have to give me an embarrassing
I was gonna
photo
say,
of
I'm
yourself
gonna have
here
to
at,
take a couple embarrassing
at
photos.
year's end. Lamar Miller,
Another Vienna sausage.
I think that...
The worst one is being a Trump hat,
yeah,
honestly.
you're going to have to wear the Make America Great Again hat. Lamar Miller, I think, is going to be good for the first few weeks. And as long as Alfred Blue doesn't start stealing his carries like he did last season.
They're all the same archetype of back.
When Dr. Foreman comes back, I think it might just be his job. Now, I don't know if he's coming
threaten
back.
the coach in the locker room.
Exactly. But he's coming off an Achilles injury. I don't know when he's going to be back. He's hard to bank on. I like him as like a late round flyer for later on in the season. But I just don't see Miller lasting all year long as a sustainable running back that you can play.
Although injuries are not really his thing.
No, but
he's durable.
You know what is his thing? Just not being very good.
Oh no, he's not good. And again, we're at that tier of running back. The not good, but volume should hypothetically be there.
All right, we need to start running through some of these guys. So let's do the rookies. Okay. Rashad Penny, I have as the number, besides Barkley, as the top guy. For my fantasy sake, I really hope my last round keep of Chris Carson can come through, but that might not be the case. But I'm not also sold that Rashad Penny's just going to come in and be like the man, but he has the best chance to be in that backfield. And if they're throwing a lot and, CJ Procytes gets hurt after 2 snaps, then it could just be Penny catching all these passes.
I like Ronald Jones more. I just look at the situation. Tampa might score negative points the first 3 weeks of the season. That's clearly on the table. But I would say there is greater competition in Seattle than there is right now in Tampa Bay. Are we scared of Peyton Barber?
Kind of. I like Peyton.
Really?
I like Peyton Barber.
I
don't like him enough to rank him. I think that Ronald Jones is clearly in the driver's seat. This, with a lot of these guys in this situations, even like Lewis and Henry, we're going to need to see it during training camp where the wind is shifting towards.
I like Lewis so much.
I like Lewis too. I like him more. I have him ranked ahead of him. I have him at 23. I have Henry at 27. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Derrick Henry might not be the lead back.
No, but I look at what Lewis has been able to do. And again, it was a great situation he was in last season, but he was Football Outsider's #1 ranked running back of 2017. He was really freaking good.
So Lewis 23, Darius Guice, or just for Tim, Don Guice at number 24, Ajayi, Derrick Henry, Royce Freeman, Jamal Williams.
Why are people excited about Ajayi? I'm trying to figure this out.
Do you think my ranking of him at 25 is excited about
No.
Ajayi?
I'm saying people have him inside people have him like RB15.
Well, starting running back on one of the 3 best offenses
but
in
they
the
showed,
NFL.
they showed last season that they have the right philosophy. They have a Belichickian philosophy about running backs. Keep them fresh, roll them through.
And now Sproles is back.
I don't get why people think Ajayi is going to have 20 carries a game this season.
So Tim, do you think that
No, I don't think he's going to.
Well, Tim once lost a giant bet about Jay Ajayi rushing for over 1,500 yards in the season. You lost you lost like $500 on that one.
Yeah, I'm aware, but so I'm not super excited about him. But I mean, I can understand why one might be if you think, hey, well, the Eagles got him halfway through the year, so he didn't really have an opportunity to go through camp, get adjusted, and be dependably the number one back going for. I don't know. You can tell yourself a story about Ajayi that makes you think that he's going to get 55% of the carries, right? And if he got that on the best offense, well, then
that's exactly what we're looking at here. If he gets 55% of the carries, he's going to be awful.
No, he won't be awful. If you give him more than half the carries on this Eagles team,
I think that's a high estimate. I really think.
And even
that's
if he
a high
does,
number.
what is that? How many times realistically are the Eagles rushing the ball per game? Let's say they rush the ball 30 times per game. You get 15 carries a game, and that might not be a consistent number
who's
week to week.
never translated their ability to catch the ball in college to the pro level? Jay Ajayi.
And who do they have? Darren Sproles, who's there just to catch passes. And Corey Clement's good. I like Corey Clement.
I was just playing the devil's advocate.
Yeah, no, sure. I really don't get it. I remember hearing about it. I remember hearing people getting excited. I rushed to see how Corey Clement died. Didn't die, surprisingly. I don't get what's changed. So I think 25 is fine. That's a fine ranking.
With Guice, I'm just worried about Chris Thompson, that he just might be the guy who carries the ball between the tackles, and that's it.
Yeah, but I would think about him in the same way you would think about. He's not Cohen, but last season
Ice Cream Cohen
is a barometer of like Chris Thompson probably shouldn't be getting 20 touches a game.
I agree, but 12 is a good number.
Great number.
And if that's 12, then what's the number going to be for Guice?
Not that high.
So you're banking on him getting like 18 carries a game, every single goal line touch.
And we saw Rob Kelly. Rob Kelly was actually getting a high volume of carries in this offense last season.
They still have Samaje Perine, or Samaje P. Henson, as I enjoy to call him. Like, he's still there. Like, I just don't think it's as clear cut as some people really want to like dig in and say that is. And I feel the same way about Ronald Jones. And again, during training camp, a lot of the stuff can change.
Yes,
I'm not afraid to adjust my rankings, but right now, I don't see it.
That's fair. I would just, of these guys, and you have them all grouped together so evenly that it's...
And Sony Michel's a part of this mix too.
It's really not that big an argument to have because, like you said, especially with rookies, actually seeing training camp and how they're utilized in preseason games is so big. I would just say my front runner right now for a rookie running back who is not Saquon Barkley is Ronald Jones. I think I like him the most of these guys.
I think that objectively, for the situation for PPR scoring, I think that Penny is in the best situation, but... If my fears about...
He's just such a bad pass blocker.
So
he'll fit right in.
Yeah, they don't block anyway.
I know.
What's the difference?
Yeah, that's true.
So I think the guy who has the potential to take the biggest leap here, because it all depends on what Devonta Booker does. If he's just completely X out of this offense...
Oh, sure.
Royce Freeman has a chance to be really good, but I'm still concerned that Devonta Booker is going to be a guy in this offense.
Look...
He won't go away. He's like HPV. You can get the vaccination, but it still crops up from time to time.
What? I know it's only year 3, but it seems like he's been given a chance to win this job, 6 times now?
Yeah. And
he might not be any good.
Yeah, that's very much on the table.
If I might not, I mean he's not any good.
He might be good. We don't know.
I don't think he's good.
We don't know. We don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, that's my hesitation right now in my ranking of Freeman. If people are wondering why that he's down at number 27. Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones suspended the 2 games.
2 games, yeah.
I just think that he has the first crack at being the guy in Green Bay, and if he plays well enough, it's just going to be his until he gets hurt.
I feel like it's going to flip-flop a lot this season.
It could.
I think there are going to be weeks
if you had to pick one, who would it be? Williams, Jones, or...
I think you just have to pick Williams because you know he's going to get...
Or...
Montgomery.
Flea market.
I think... Where is Ty Montgomery going in drafts right now?
I don't know. Probably right next to the mini mall.
Living rooms, bedrooms, diners. We got it. You need it. You'll find it. It's just like a mini mall. Hey.
I don't think Ty Montgomery's a bad player to own in a PPR.
No, I don't think he's bad, but I just don't think that he's going to be like a running back.
I think they learned last season they can't run him between the tackles.
Unless he's wearing a flak jacket.
Maybe.
And frankly, when was the last time a Green Bay running back was really, really good? Jamal Williams is kind of the guy. He was good last year.
Yeah.
With Nick Hundley? Brett Hundley?
Brett Hundley.
Brett Hundley?
No, wait.
One of them's a catcher.
Brett Hundley.
One
Nick
of them
Hundley
used to be a catcher for the
Nick Hundley
Padres.
plays for the Giants now.
Okay.
Yep.
Either way.
I know, I got that wrong a bunch of times.
Detroit backfield. I have Kerryon Johnson ranked the best, but like if
you have to, but
I would almost consider ranking Riddick the best.
See, I'm on Team Riddick
yeah,
for this one.
that actually might make
Let's say that Theo Riddick, Tim, had gone to Iowa and not Notre Dame. Would you be as high on him?
I wouldn't care because when we
really, as we go through all these ranking shows, people are going to find out that these Notre Dame players are really good, according to Tim.
Well, we're not ranking tight ends today, thank God.
But Riddick, like, I don't know how much value any of them have. Like,
Riddick has the highest floor, and he might also have the highest ceiling.
I agree on both those points.
Blunt probably has the highest ceiling, because if he's the one getting all the goal line carries, is actually effective doing it, that might just translate into more carries. And Kerryon Johnson just plays Amir Abdullah. He gets, not only is he the between the 20s running back, he's also just the guy that gets 8 carries a game. Like, sweet. Thanks, Kerryon.
Are you starting LeGarrette Blount any week?
Yeah, if Kerryon Johnson got hurt, yeah.
Sure. I just feel like in a PPR, I can see myself starting Riddick, banking on 6 catches.
Without something happening, there's no way I would start Blount.
Yeah.
But I think if we're talking about the back end of my roster, because it's not like Blunt's going high.
Sure, he's a pretty good handcuff.
Like, you could have a handcuff type back that's still going to do stuff on a week-to-week basis. That could see his role increase without any injuries happening. And if an injury did happen, he would be potentially valuable. Any other running backs you want to talk about?
I mean, we talked about Crowell slightly. I think
Crowell reeks.
Listen, he's going to be, I think, the most important running back in an offense that's up and coming. So if he was your RB3,
oh my god,
I think that would be perfectly fine.
Okay,
you mentioned Gio Bernard at a star by. You kind of chatted about him, though.
I like Gio Bernard, but he's a guy to take right near the end.
And
no one's taking him.
He's free.
Chris Ivory might potentially play a really big role in the Bills' offense.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a reason to draft these guys who you know are going to have is as unflattering as it might seem. 15 carries is still 15 carries. You can't necessarily overlook that on a weekly
I don't even know if he's
basis.
going to get that. Elijah Lizzie McGuire might be the one to come in. And,
Look,
let's not forget,
freaking annoying
Tim
last
did
season.
tell me at the time that Thomas Rawls signing with the Jets, one of the best signings of the offseason.
That's true, yeah. Oh, God. They have some bad running backs.
They still have Bilal Powell, who's probably their best running back.
I don't think so.
And you got to think, they're going to be losing a lot of these games, so they're going to be passing a lot, which means...
I don't think so either.
Oh, really? So the last time we talked to you, you had the Jets at 12 wins. That was right after they drafted Sam Darnold. Now they've signed Terrell Pryor since. Now they got Crowell since. And can you give me a projection on how many games you think the Jets are going to win now?
I actually would scroll back to like 11. Like, I'm willing to make a step backwards.
Well, they're over under Vegas win total is 6. So
yeah, that's insulting, but we'll talk about that on another day.
All right.
Sure we will.
If you're looking for like backups, if you play in a deeper league, John Kelly appears to be the guy over Malcolm Brown behind Gurley now. Yeah. They drafted him, and that could be a training camp out, but something to look at. John Connor to back up. Is it James Conner? James Conner.
I think I have as a red shirt in our 16-team dynasty.
Not terrible.
Cause.
If Le'Veon Bell gets hurt, then they're going to use him.
Yeah.
Although there was a very sneaky thing, very telling thing about the Steelers' offense last year, because Le'Veon Bell played like 99% of the snaps. Every time James Conner was on the field, he carried the ball. I don't know if that's 100%, but just like watching the games, like James Conner's out there, hand off to James Conner.
Yeah.
Matt Breida could just play a more significant role in this 49ers offense.
You never know.
Maybe we think.
If you're concerned, like if you're the kind of person who looks at Jerick McKinnon and says, I'm not going to draft him because I think he's too frail to carry a load that would justify a second-round pick, you're the kind of guy who should be drafting Matt Breida.
Tim's not too frail to carry a load, I'll tell you that much.
Good grief.
Jordan Wilkins in Indianapolis. We didn't talk much about Marlon Mack.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for that to shake itself out. Right now I have Marlon Mack at 30.
I mean,
that's assuming he's the starter.
I think he's going to be the guy, right?
Who knows? It could be Neiman Hines. It could be Jordan Wilkins. It could be
There's
Marlon
so many
Mack.
question marks about that entire...
Marlon Retour du Mac. It is the Francais version of Return of the Mac.
If you know that Andrew Luck can actually throw a football, does that impact your view of Marlon Mack at all?
No, not really.
That says a lot about Marlon Mack, though.
It really impacts my view of T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah.
Chris Carson, not out of the picture in Seattle.
Sure.
Ivory, like I mentioned.
There's a real chance Chris Carson's the starting running back.
It could be, yeah. That's another one we need to keep up to date on.
Yeah, CJ Procise, another guy. You got to stay healthy, but if he does, he could make.
Where did he go to college?
Whatever. These are guys that have stars next to.
Shocker. All right, I think that's good. Peyton Barber could just be the running back in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he could start. I would say though that situation is unique just in the sense that Peyton Barber being announced like the week 1 starting running back might not mean a whole lot.
Sure.
Because again, I don't think they're going to move the football for 3 solid weeks.
Why is Fitzmagic exponentially worse than
No,
Jameis?
their schedule's really tough in that stretch too.
Okay.
So it's a combination of losing your because it's not really that big a differential. Although Jameis is like a good DFS golfer. Maybe it's the same result as Fitzmagic, but there's going to be a lot more touchdowns and interceptions in between.
Sure. Although it's really tough to say, considering you're putting Jameis on more interceptions
than
the
Fitzmagic. I know, it's true.
Yeah, but you know Fitzmagic's going to play well enough to earn a contract, and then he's going to suck.
When does he get to be an offensive coordinator? And does he have to fight Josh McCown to the death so only one of them can survive?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about this.
Okay.
All right, that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Running back ranking special. We'll do a running back update and a rankings update at the beginning of August. So please, in the comment section, leave your 2 biggest busts at running back along with your DK handle, and boom, you're in the draw to win some DK bucks. We'll announce the winners on that show. I want to thank Gary, and of course, I always want to thank Tim and Cust.
Tim and Cust.
Not my name.
For all the free money that you've given me in these terrible bets.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
You can check out the full rankings list along with my top 200 and all the other rankings as they come out, either on the DraftKings YouTube channel, on my audio podcast for the Pat Mayo Experience, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever in the DK Playbook. Plus, if you go to facebook.com/thepme, my full link to every single show I've done in descending order from most recent to oldest is up there, pinned to the very top, so you can go check that out if there's something that you're looking for in particular and see how everything. I've been trying to have a lot of good guests on, not just Tim.
What happened this week?
Oh, I had.
Yeah, really. Drop the ball now.
Yeah, well, I'm having you on so I can discuss my rankings.
Okay.
But over the course, I had Clay on, I had Al on, Rich Rebar I had on, Seeley's always going to be making his appearances, Silva came on. I've been having some decent guests.
Yeah.
I'll probably have Brad Evans on soon, so we can just fight about stuff like we always do.
He's fun.
He is a lot of fun. A lot of tequila with Brad.
Tequila Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, well, every time you go to these FSWA things, Yahoo has like free drinks. It's like, let's go to Brad's room and just get loaded. Perfect. But Garion Thorne, at Garion Thorne on Twitter, and new podcast.
Yeah, Fantasy on 5. We're part of the 5 Reasons Network, which is sort of a South Florida-based podcast.
I was going to say, that sounds like a basketball podcast.
A lot of basketball. But there's also, there's 3 Yards Per Carry, which is a Miami Dolphins-centric podcast. I am not on it because I could not be forced to talk about the Dolphins that long. But they're also Fishtails, which is hosted by OJ McDuffie.
I think you're thinking of DuckTales.
No, Fishtails. That is back, though. Watch that on Disney XD.
Just giving plugs to everything.
Sure, everyone gets a plug.
Tim, where can I follow you?
At Tim Anderson 87. I bring the funny.
You don't bring the funny. You bring terrible lists that people just get triggered about.
Less
and
lately.
then you get, well, Tim's a working man these days. This
I
is
think
the time for lists.
I think he's saving them for football season.
Probably. He was running really dry on commentary.
Yeah.
It's like we had to cancel Cust Corner for a while because he had no fresh takes.
Yeah, I bet he has a problem with millennials.
Yeah, big shocker.
Despite
there's no one person being more millennial than Tim.
Didn't know how to work a fax machine.
Hipster millennial snowflake.
millennial.
Tim Endercast.
Not true at all.
Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Give the episode a like, please, and go back and watch the other ones. And give those likes, too. And rate and review on wherever you listen to this audio-wise. All right? I'm Pat Mayo. Enjoy fantasy football season. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!